After my personal struggle with food left me sick and suicidal, I was struck with the realization that food alone can't fix us. So I set out to discover what could, and what I found changed everything. After coaching thousands of clients and interviewing the world's leading experts, I realized it was time to start a bigger conversation. What are you really hungry for?
It's great.
Ooh, good one.
What am I really hungry for?
I love that question.
It's time to discover what you're really hungry for. Each one of us has a personal story of overcoming struggle. Each one of us has been to hell and back in our own way. We've experienced a dark night of the soul where we felt lost and lonely. Eckhart Tolle describes the dark night of the soul as a collapse of a perceived meaning in life, an eruption into your life of a deep sense of meaninglessness. The inner state, in some cases, is very close to what is conventionally called depression. Nothing makes sense anymore. There's no purpose to anything. When we go through these struggles, we often feel completely alone. Life seems to have just lost its meaning. We feel as though no one can understand us and that no one has ever felt the way that we're feeling right now. See, this is what makes personal stories so powerful. When we share our personal stories of struggle, we reach out from the darkness to connect with people rather than just staying isolated and alone. I've looked to other people's stories to help me make sense of my own struggles. In the past, when I felt lonely and alone in life, I've searched for other people who've been there and gotten through. It's helped me to see that other people have dealt with similar issues. It also helps me understand that struggle is a universal issue. Every one of us has struggled and wrestled with things in our lives, which means we're all connected in that beautiful way. Each one of these realizations brings me to a deeper sense of connection, a deeper sense of harmony and unity with other people. When I know that I'm not alone in the darkest place of my life, that I can see that there are other people who are experiencing what I've experienced, I'm never, ever without hope. Simply put, feeling alone and without meaning can be one of the greatest enemies in your life. When you feel all alone in the world, you slide into a deeper, darker place than when you realize that you're connected to so many other people out there. When we think that we're alone in life, we begin to get self-centered and ego-centered. We stop thinking about how our experience can teach us. And when we go into self-protection mode, which isn't helpful, that stifles our growth. So it's by sharing our stories, by sharing our experiences with struggle, that we can really find a deep connection with the world and everyone in it. We can rediscover what's really meaningful to us. We can discover our own personal power. What's even more amazing is that when we begin to tell our stories of struggle, we begin to learn from those stories. We learn that what we've gone through happened to teach us a lesson. We're able to step back and get more perspective on the issue because we're not stuck in that ego-centered place where the struggle becomes our whole world. Instead, growth becomes our world. We become inspired by what we and others have been through, and we start to see a deeper meaning to it all. When we understand the deeper meaning to our struggle, we can begin to be more dedicated in our own lives. We can see what we need to do to become the person that we want to be. And we can start writing the story of not just where we've been, but of where we want to go. We can look to the future and write our story of what we want to accomplish, the type of person that we want to become, and the feelings that we want to experience in our lives. My guest this week, Bo Eason, is a former NFL football player who then went on to write a critically acclaimed play, Runt of the Litter. He now helps train others on how to tell their story in powerful and impactful ways so that they can finally tap into the power of their own personal experience. So, Bo, we're talking today about your story and how telling your story of struggle can really set you free. So in essence, just the power of your personal story. Yeah. So I think where I would love to start with you is telling your story.
Yeah. most people know, when I was 9 years old, I had this dream, of being the best safety in the whole world. And that's all I wanted to do. So I drew up a plan with some crayon and some school paper. So I'm 9, so imagine this plan.
That's great.
And every day for the next 20 years, it was a 20-year plan. So in 1984 is the year that I would be drafted into the NFL. It happened, but all the way leading up to it happening, it looked like it was never going to happen. Like I didn't get a scholarship to college. Nobody wanted me. I was very small. I wasn't even the best player in my family. And eventually it happened. When that finished, when football was over, I had 7 knee surgeries while I played, so I got, you get beat up pretty quickly. I just thought, I was being wheeled off of the field after the 7th knee surgery. I was being wheeled off of the field, and I was looking up into the crowd in this stadium in Miami. We're playing the Dolphins. And I looked up in the crowd, and I was just thinking to myself, I've trained at one thing my whole life, 20 years, to be the best in the world at a thing, and now I can't do that thing anymore. And then the very next question in my mind was, what am I going to do now? And the answer was, and this is the vision that I had, like it just popped in my head as I'm on a stretcher, was prison. Because I thought, the one thing I do better than everybody else in the whole world is illegal in the civilian world. You know what I mean? Like the things I do best is run 25 miles per hour, throw my head into other people, and people go like this, oh, that's great. Yeah, good job. Pat you on the butt. And now that I can't do that anymore, I'm going to take this out into the civilian world, and that's just not going to pass muster. it's not going to be accepted. So I thought of prison, and the very next thought to avoid prison was, I'm moving to New York City. I'm going to find a place I could put my feet, really similar to an NFL field. I got to find a stage. I got to find somewhere to put myself so that I can express myself and actually not hurt people doing it and actually make a living doing it and avoid prison all at the same time. So that's like 3 good things.
There, yeah.
Yeah. So I did. I moved to New York. I just got in every class I could, improv classes, writing classes, theater classes, acting classes, anything I could. I used the same energy that it took me to be the best safety to be the best stage performer. And I went to every kid in my class and said, hey, what do I got to do? Who's the best stage performer of our time? Who is that? And this was 1990. They were all like, well, that's Al Pacino. And so about 3 days later, they said I couldn't meet Al Pacino, but I did. About 3 days later, I was at his house. And he goes, Bo, I understand why, you're here. I understand you want what I've got. And I go, yeah. Can you tell me how to be the best stage performer of my time? Can you tell me exactly what to do? He goes, yes, but fair warning, that's going to be 15 years. And I go, cool, I work really good in those kind of timelines. Let's do it. So he just broke it down. He goes, got to work with this person, that person, this person. And basically what he told me was my butt had to be on a stage more than any other human being on the earth during these 15 years. Basically, that was the coaching.
Oh.
And I said, well, okay. That's easy. I can do that. That's one thing I'm like, if you give me a plan like that, I can actually run those miles. So I did it. And then 15 years later, after I never saw Al Pacino again, so I leave. I say, goodbye, Al, thank you, and leave. 15 years later, I'm backstage on Broadway, waiting in the wings to take, it's opening night of a show that I wrote, and I'm the only guy in. And I run out on stage and I start talking to the audience. Now I played pro football. I was not nearly as nervous running into 300-pound guys as I was going to face the New York critics. I went out there and my heart was pounding. I was dying out there. And but about 5 or 10 minutes into the show, I started to feel my feet on the stage. I started to get like present, And about that time, I made eye contact with a guy in the 5th row, and he's right on the aisle, and it's Al Pacino.
Stop it.
Yeah, and I haven't seen him in 15 years, and he just does this. We make eye contact. The show's going on, right? Like, so I'm speaking, right? And I'm looking right at Al Pacino, and he's looking at me, and he goes like this. That's all he did. Wow. And it was the best review that I ever got, after all those 15 years of training. So, my life really has been, I've been like obsessed with what it takes to be the best at a thing. And I don't care if it's this position in football, or it's this stage performer, or it's a speaker, or it's a husband, or it's a father. I'm really obsessed with what it takes to be that. And the one thing that you have to have if you want to be the best in the world at a thing, no matter what discipline, whether it's ballet or playing the cello, you've got to know your story. And you've got to be able to express it. The story, not only story that where you're coming from, but the story of your visionary story, where you're going, so that people can then now help you build it, like Al Pacino. And all the people, all the mentors that show up once you say, hey, I have this dream, and this dream is to be the best safety in the whole world. Can you help me? And there's not one person on this earth that I have met that would say no to that. They say yes. It's just we don't ask.
I don't need any help, Bo. I got this. I'm good.
Yeah.
When in reality, we're like, man, I wish somebody would just come and help me right now with anything. I'll take it.
Then that's what connects us. That very thing, that struggle that you open the show with, that story of struggle, that's what bonds us. Our story begins with you and me on the bottom of that mountain, looking up, saying there's no way in hell we can do it. And all the trials and tribulations that it takes to conquer that mountain, that's what people are interested in. Human beings are interested in that. They're not interested in greatness. They're not interested in greatness unless it was a great, heroic journey to get there. That's why we don't like the story of somebody born with a silver spoon in their mouth. If you connect to people who have scars on them, real scars, surgeries, scars, bloody noses, we never cheer for the person who doesn't have that stuff, ever. The beauty of a great story, of a personal story, of you sharing with me or me sharing with you, is you've given your audience, or the listener in this case, the best gift you can give to another human being. And that is, you have put them into their own life. Us, human beings, we want to be in our own lives. We want to think about our lives. We want to reflect. We want to go forward. We want to go backwards in our own lives. The minute, like you asked me my story, and I said when I was 9 years old, I had a dream. So that's a half a sentence, right? It's got a comma right there. Right then, everybody who's watching, including you, including the whole set here and all the watchers and the listeners, right then, they're not thinking about Bo and his story. They're not. They're thinking about their life.
Yes.
They're thinking about their dreams. They're thinking about when they were 9. They're thinking about their broken-hearted dreams that never came true. They're not thinking about me. They're thinking about them.
I love that. And how much of it, Bo, is about hope? Because look, I've read a lot of people's stories, right? But I, a lot of times, found hope. And I would think, wow, how did they do it again? Let me do what they, like, just like you.
Yeah.
Al told you what to do, because we're buddies like that. I call him Al.
Yeah, that's good that you
we're friends.
I call him the Godfather.
Yeah. So when there's a step-by-step plan that somebody did and then they were successful, I thought, oh, wait. First of all, I had 2 thoughts, right? The first thought was, I'm not alone. Yeah. Right? And the other thing was, there's hope, because now I know how. Yeah. I mean, don't we get that as human beings from someone else's story?
Completely. Because, if you think of anybody that you admire, like, so think of somebody, everybody out there, think of somebody or several people that you admire. And the thing about them is they had to battle. The reason people get to certain levels is we get rejected. That's our story. That when we get rejected, that's the defining moment of the story. That's the defining moment. The moment that you look around, and it's usually in between the ages of 9 and 12. Not always, but typically between 9 and 12, because it's when your emotions are so ripe and so tenuous. In my case, it was being cut from Little League. I wanted to play with my brother. Whatever the moment is, it's a defining moment that defines the rest of your life. That's a great story. Because now I know what you're made of.
And I love, stories like that lights me up. And again, that's why I'm like, well, if that dude can do it, so can I,
Yep.
right? Or she can do it, I've got this.
Yep.
We all feel that capability.
Yep.
What I'm curious about is when you're teaching people how to tell their personal story,
Yeah.
when things come up that they feel shame
Yeah.
over, or guilt,
Yes.
or these dirty feelings that they don't feel so good, Bo, and you want me to talk about them, and not even talk about them, but tell other people about them.
Yeah.
They don't feel so good to me. How do we come to terms with being able, for the power of our story to influence lives, to impact the world?
Yeah.
And how do we, but yet we have guilt.
We do, and me too.
Yeah.
Before I learned, from the people that Al Pacino had me train with, the teachers that he had me train with, had me do this very thing. So, this very question that you're asking me, they made it was an assignment.
See, I knew you'd be the man to ask.
Right. Yeah, and what they said is this. They go, look, think of your most proudest moment. And so 5 second, everybody think of your proudest moment right now. Okay? Everybody got it?
Yep.
Bad story. Not a good story. Now, let's think of your lowest moment of your whole life. That one where you looked around and there were no answers. That one. In reality, that is the most valuable thing you've got. That's the key to the kingdom, right there. That little story of being cut from Little League, or being dumped at the prom, or being told you can't sing. We think it's a mundane story because we've lived so many years and it's behind us. But we've built a whole life building up walls and this steel around this little pot of gold where this story resides in all of us. If we let that baby out, if we lead with that, this embarrassment, this so-called shame, it actually inspires the world and brings the world to you. The opposite of what you think is going to happen is actually going to happen. And start to let this thing build. I'm telling you, the only reason we don't have connective tissue anymore in our world, we're so kind of disconnected, is because of that. And if we just would drop our guard a little bit and let people in and actually share that part of ourselves, we'd have a lot more people around us helping us build whatever it is we want to build.
Yeah. Well, you said the operative word, I think, fear.
Yeah.
Courage.
Right.
Like, where does that courage come from?
Your commitment has to supersede the way you feel. Right? Because look,
Yes.
I would just ask everybody, what is your commitment? Is your commitment to share yourself, so that to liberate others to share themselves?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
have more connective tissue?
And heal and grow and yes.
Yeah, so all that takes is a commitment. Doesn't take bravery necessarily, because I don't necessarily feel brave and I don't necessarily feel courageous. And that's what people have to be. They have to have the commitment has to supersede the way you feel.
That's good.
And we just don't make any commitments anymore, right? Because we failed. Like we couldn't keep a promise.
Right.
So
We
we
don't
never
do that
make another
anymore.
one.
Yeah.
Or we couldn't come through on a commitment. So we're undisciplined and we're just never going to make another commitment. Well, that's just not true. You're going to go like this. I stay true to the commitment, stay true to the dream and the story. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. You should be loyal to one thing in this lifetime, one thing, and that's you.
I hear you. I think that's so, I love that. I heard you so completely, the commitment over courage. That's so profound.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that. And
you're welcome.
Bo, thank you for everything that you're doing just to help liberate people, to help them really own their story, to be honest about who they are. Because for me, that's the first step. When I see people transformed, and I've worked with thousands of people over the years,
Yeah.
that's it. It's getting really honest with who you are,
Yeah.
where you came from, what you've experienced, and just putting it out there, because then you start to heal.
Oh, you just nailed it. Like people, I never talk about this. Usually in business settings, I never bring this up because they freak out if I bring up the word healing.
Healing.
You know what I mean? Right? So they're like, oh my gosh, we're going to, what?
Can we just talk about the numbers again?
You're right. Let's go back to the columns and the percentages.
So, Bo, the name of the show is What You're Really Hungry For.
Yeah.
And so every guest that comes on, I ask them this question, and I
Yeah.
want to ask you,
Yeah.
but what are you really hungry for?
I think I mentioned this earlier, but I've always been really hungry and obsessed with what it takes to be the best in the world at what we do. I'm not talking about second place. Right? I'm not, right? Like, that's hard to get your mind around, isn't it? Because people go, well, silver medals are okay. And I'm like, no. So I say that's what I'm hungry for, is like to have a world where everyone accepts that fact, that's why they're here, and actually takes it on in their life. And then, so imagine just for a second, if that was the case. What kind of world do you think we'd be living in right now? Right? If everyone fought and battled their butts off to be the best in the world at what they do, whether it's playing the cello or whether it's, making a coffee and everything in between. What if their mission was to be the best in the world at that, and they fought tooth and nail to have it? Right?
It'd be a very different world.
Right? That's the world I dream of. That's what I'm hungry for.
That. I
Right?
love that.
And it's going to come with some scars, but thank God, right? Because you get a bloody nose, that's a good story. If you got an easy ride, there's no story. You get skinned knees and punched in the eye, that's a good story. People will follow you. People respect that.
I do. And I think that's amazing. And again, thank you, not just even for telling us how to tell our personal stories or the importance of it, but I think more importantly, Bo, what you've done here today is given us permission to that. So thank you so much for all of your work in the world. Thank you for your message today and sharing these amazing insights. Thanks for being you, Bo.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Cynthia.
This week is all about connecting through your personal story. So I invite you to choose one of Bo's tips that he discussed during our show and start implementing it in your life today. What one thing can you do to start telling your personal story? Don't wait another day or even another hour. Start writing and sharing your personal story right now. As always, the conversation continues at cynthiapasquella.com. Head on over and leave a message below this video telling me the one thing that you will do to start telling your story today. And while you're there, make sure you download today's free menu to track your progress. You'll find inspirational quotes from today's show and a daily checklist that'll help keep you on track. It's located right below this video at cynthiapasquella.com. Did you like this video? If you did, please subscribe. And I would be oh so grateful if you would also share it with your friends. And if you want to hear more from me, including stuff that I only say in email, then come on over to cynthiapasquella.com and sign up for my email newsletter so that you can become a part of this beautiful community of women who are discovering what they're really hungry for. This episode is brought to you by the Institute of Transformational Nutrition. Discover the secrets to becoming a go-to expert in nutrition coaching while making great money on the side or even enjoying a new career at www.transformationalnutrition.com. On next week's episode of What You're Really Hungry For.
It doesn't work because you can't talk yourself out of what you also believe.
Wow.
You have to.
You can't talk yourself out of what you already believe.
Yeah, it's like people say, well, drop feelings. How do you drop a feeling? There's only one way, as counterintuitive as it sounds, there's only one